Redfall is a huge flop, Microsoft gets some bad news, and the next best gaming handheld is on its way. My name is Josh, and we're going to be talking about all that and more as we discuss what's been happening in gaming lately. Let's start off with some Microsoft and Xbox gaming news. This has been far from a great week for Microsoft. From Redfall's flop release to some bad news on the Activision merger front, we're going to discuss it all. By all accounts, Redfall is definitely a major failure for Microsoft. While the game has some positive reviews such as a 7 out of 10 from GameRant, most of the reviews are just not great. The game currently sits at a 63 on Metacritic, a mostly negative on Steam, and a 4 out of 10 and 5 out of 10 from GameSpot and GamesRadar respectively. There have been some positives about the game such as its art style and gunplay, however the overwhelming issues cannot be overlooked. From poor performance to a lack of enemy types, an empty, lifeless world, lackluster abilities in-game, and just a sad state of co-op, which many were really looking forward to. In Redfall, co-op was supposed to be a highly anticipated feature, however it now seems that it was almost an afterthought, with co-op being anything but seamless and progression only carrying over for the host. This just seems like a continually disappointing trend of, Xbox console exclusive games just not living up to the hype or expectations. And this truly puts pressure on Microsoft and the upcoming release of Starfield to really be a success. Microsoft continues to struggle delivering high quality first party games to Xbox, and Redfall just adds to an ever growing list. The pressure is on for Starfield to be a success for Microsoft and keep players playing for a long time, because if not, Xbox will continue to fall further behind PlayStation and their games library. With the Xbox Games Showcase coming June 11th, it'll be interesting to see what they can deliver. This will be followed by a highly anticipated Starfield showcase, one that I'm really looking forward to. Xbox has said they will be showing some new surprises and first looks from first-party studios, and they're trying to build the hype by saying this is the day that gamers have been looking forward to. And after Redfall's release, I truly hope it's something spectacular, because they really need spectacular right now. After writing and recording the bulk of this video, Xbox's Phil Spencer actually came out and did an interview with Kinda Funny Games, apologizing for Redfall's failure and discussing the general state of Xbox at the moment. He recognized that Redfall was well below expectations, saying that, quote, "There's nothing more difficult for me than disappointing the Xbox community. I'm upset with myself." He also mentioned that the game launching on console without 60 FPS was basically a punch in the face. He also discussed how Microsoft mishandled the game's development, stating, quote, "This is one where Arcane didn't hit their own internal goals. We didn't do a good job early on of engaging with Arcane Austin to help them understand what it meant to be part of Xbox. We left them to work on the game. They're a very talented team and I love that team. I still do. We should have been there for the team earlier. That's on us. We were too late to help. I take that as a learning moment, as painful as it is." Spencer also discussed the gap between Xbox and other console makers, saying that Xbox are, quote, "not in the business of out-consoling Sony or out-consoling Nintendo," stating that the gap created during the Xbox One and PS4 generation of consoles left them too far behind. He continued by saying, quote, "There is no world where Starfield is an 11 out of 10 and people start selling their PS5s. That's not going to happen." While I don't fully agree with his statements here, this is something that I think we've known for a while, that Xbox is likely never to catch up when it comes to console sales, and the real goal is to try and make money selling the games and services. However, if the games aren't good, especially the first-party titles, then there's just no one going to be there to even purchase the games either. And like I mentioned, Xbox is going to have to step up their game regarding their first-party titles, and they have to deliver the games when they first release. No more of this buggy mess, we're going to fix it later, we have a 10-year plan. It's not any good. Promises are great, but eventually if you're not meeting those promises, then people are going to lose trust. And the trust is starting to fade with Xbox and Microsoft. As I mentioned earlier, Microsoft's bad week doesn't end at Redfall, as we saw some more huge news on the Microsoft-Activision merger front. Earlier in the week, it was reported by the New York Post that Microsoft was still looking to close on the $69 billion deal, despite the lingering suit from the FTC, which looked to block the deal back in December. After that suit from the FTC, Microsoft has been looking toward the UK and the EU in hopes of gaining approval there and bolstering their arguments back here in the US. Microsoft had been working to try and make concessions with the UK Competition and Markets Authority, trying to strike up deals with different cloud-based services to bring Activision games to the cloud. And in recent weeks, developments have looked promising, with Microsoft promising Call of Duty access to rival consoles for the foreseeable future, as well as bringing some of those games over to Nintendo where they haven't been before. However, the timetable is really ticking for Microsoft, as they have a July 18th merger deadline with Activision that is growing ever closer. which could end up costing Microsoft a $3 billion termination fee to Activision. However, not long after it was reported that Microsoft would likely be moving forward with the deal, they came upon another huge roadblock, that being the British government's antitrust authorities. Less than a day after reporting that Microsoft would look to move forward with its deal outside the US, the New York Post then reported that the deal is also being blocked in the UK, which seemingly came as a shock to Microsoft. The UK CME cited market advantage being at the heart of them blocking the deal, mentioning Call of Duty, Overwatch, and World of Warcraft franchises. And as a result, the Activision Blizzard stock dropped nearly 10% after the news was released. In response to this news, Microsoft remained adamant that they would look to move forward and remain committed to getting the deal done, with Activision Blizzard CEO Bobby Kotick releasing a statement that said, quote, "This isn't the news we wanted, but it is far from the final word on this deal. Alongside Microsoft, we can and will contest this decision, and we've already begun the work to appeal to the UK Competition's Appeals Tribunal. We're confident in our case because the facts are on our side. This deal is good for competition." While this story is far from over, it does add another huge hurdle to jump over to get this deal through. There's still an opportunity for Microsoft to appeal that decision, but as reported by VGC, these decisions are often unlikely to be successful with the CMA. If it is successfully appealed, it can be reviewed again, which could be a process that may take until the end of the year. So we'll keep checking in on this story, and I'll keep you updated as the news changes. Speaking of new releases, Star Wars Jedi Survivor released this week, and the reactions are kind of all over the place, so let's talk about it. First things first, regarding the actual gameplay and story, Jedi Survivor has received some huge praise, earning a 9 out of 10 on IGN, 9.25 on Game Informer, and an 8 out of 10 on GameSpot. At its core, the game is truly an excellent sequel, building upon Cal's story and Fallen Order's gameplay in a beautiful way. However, as you probably already heard, there have been some huge problems. While the game received a lot of positive feedback for its story and gameplay, it has been completely overshadowed by the performance issues, especially on PC, which has been just downright unplayable for many. It seems like we see this time and time again, bad PC port after bad PC port, and Jedi Survivor is no exception. I mean, PC gamers have really been getting the raw end of gaming this year. I mean, let's just go through a few of the PC port screw-ups this year. We can start with Jedi Survivor since we're already talking about it, but we also have The Last of Us PC port, Wo Long Fallen Dynasty, Wild Hearts, Forspoken, which had some issues, and then of course there was that disaster that was the Callisto Protocol. So while Jedi Survivor isn't the first PC port screw-up, it just continually continues to happen, and it's just unacceptable at this point. However, it seems that PC is not the only platform experiencing performance issues, as Xbox and PlayStation players have also reported some stuttering and frame drops during gameplay. Even with an earlier delay for the game, it seems that Respawn wasn't able to fix all the issues that were needed before its release. And even with all these lingering issues, it's being reported that the game director refused to delay the release date again. As you can expect, the game was bombarded with negative reviews on Steam and is currently sitting at a mostly negative overall score. And the game hasn't fared much better on Metacritic either, where it has some decent critic reviews for PC and console, but abysmal user reviews on all platforms. The negative press eventually led EA to apologize to PC fans and promise to fix the game and its issues. Unfortunately, this will remain a negative stain on what otherwise would be a fantastic game that delivers on nearly everything that fans wanted, including myself. I've played some of the game so far and have only encountered a few performance issues, but I've been playing on a Series X. As I mentioned earlier, this is becoming more of an industry trend that truly has to change. I think the best way to fix this is for game publishers to just wait a lot longer to announce game titles, which will hopefully alleviate some of the pressure on developers to get things done. However, I also know that the game industry runs on money and big games move the investment needle, but it's nice to remain hopeful. Some of the biggest streamers in the Battle Royale scene are coming together to develop a new community-powered BR titled Project V. Tim the Tatman, Cypher PK, Nick Merckx, Ninja, and Courage JD are looking to create the BR within Fortnite's new Unreal Editor, which offers creators a toolkit for developing their own content. Epic also has plans to incorporate a quote engagement pool, which will reward creators monetarily based on the engagement that their creations get from players, making this quite a lucrative opportunity if they can create something that players actually enjoy. While we don't know much about the project just yet, on the website for the game we did get this quote detailing some of what players can expect. We'll be taking our time to develop this game as features for the UEFN become more powerful and flexible, with custom weapons, a full-scale map, fluid movement, and unique mechanics in our sights. We have ambitious plans to build something really unique. While we can't give away too many details about the game just yet, here's what we can tell you. Project V will be a game that puts community feedback and features front and center. We believe that our players should have a say in shaping the game that they play. So it sounds like community feedback will be at the heart of development, and it'll be interesting to see what they come up with. As time goes on, I expect to see more projects like this developed by content creators. We've recently seen this with Dr. Disrespect's BR Dead Drop. I mean, it just makes sense. They have the built-in audience ready to go and play the game. They have the resources, and all it takes is getting the formula right. As a fan of BRs myself, I'm excited to see what they have cooking up. We've received some new details on the upcoming handheld from Asus, the ROG Ally, which is set to launch in early May. The new handheld is looking to jump into the market as a competitor to the Switch and Steam Deck, but mostly the latter. The Verge was able to get a hands-on experience with the device and shared some details about the experience. They described the Ally as being a much different device from the Steam Deck. They describe it as a quote miniature PC that can run Windows straight out of the box and should be free of many of the compatibility issues that plague the Steam Deck. And the specs on the device are actually quite impressive for a handheld. It has a 1080p screen with a variable refresh rate between 30 and 120 Hz, and The Verge reported it has pretty impressive performance. The ROG Ally will be sold in two different configurations, an AMD Ryzen Z1 and Z1 Extreme configuration. The price of the handheld was also recently leaked, which could make it very competitive in the market if the prices are true. The Verge reported that the base Z1 256GB model will retail at $599, while the more powerful Z1 Extreme 512GB version will retail at $699. While those would honestly be a good value for what you're getting, especially the Z1 Extreme version, the $100 price increase between the two is somewhat puzzling, especially considering the storage and performance differential between the two. However, it could also be a possible marketing ploy to sell more of the upgraded version, but we'll just have to see as we learn more. And if you look at the screen now, I'll show you guys some of the stats for the Ryzen Z1 series. This is average FPS on low settings at 1080p, and we can see it gets some pretty decent frame rate. Obviously, it's not going to blow you out of the water, but the big differential between the Ryzen Z1 and Z1 Extreme, especially on games like Red Dead Redemption 2 and Shadow of the Tomb Raider, as well as Far Cry 6, just makes sense that the Z1 Extreme would be what you want. So that's just a quick overview of what we learned. I'm interested to see more from the device, and it's actually something that has really piqued my interest. I don't know, it sounds really nice for what you're getting. Obviously, it can't be the full power of a PC in your hand, but you're getting pretty close, which is pretty cool to me. Be sure and let me know your thoughts on that. It appears that Guerrilla Games has seemingly confirmed that a Horizon Forbidden West sequel will be coming, making the series officially a trilogy. For those who finished Forbidden West, this is likely no shock, given the way that the game ended. No spoilers, of course. The news came as part of an announcement by Guerrilla Games, discussing some staff reorganization at PlayStation that saw the studio's former co-head, Angie Smets, get promoted to head of development strategy at PlayStation Studios. Guerrilla confirmed that Aloy's, quote, next adventure is currently in development. They also mentioned the upcoming multiplayer spin-off game that's also in development, which some of the game's early build footage actually leaked online earlier this year, but I'm really excited to see and learn more about what this multiplayer title will entail. The Horizon universe is one of my favorites, and I'm excited to see that universe grow. And while I haven't yet gotten to check it out, Horizon Forbidden West story recently received some DLC titled Burning Shores. And the DLC hasn't come out without some controversy, as the game was review bombed by those upset with a certain romance option in the game. Minor spoilers, but in the DLC there's an optional romance path where Aloy can kiss another woman named Seika. This resulted in the DLC being downvoted by numerous different users that were upset at the romance option in game, bringing the user score down into the 3s. However, the critic reviews currently sit at an 82. Metacritic has recently seen some other controversial review bombing and has said that they would try and work to reduce this happening in the future. However, the losers that review bomb this will always find a way to get upset at something, so we'll just have to see how they try and address it in the future. Dead Island 2 has been out for just a little bit now, and thankfully it's actually not too bad. And that's really saying something, especially since the game took over 10 years to develop, or nearly a decade at least, which is a reason I wanted to include and touch on the game in this video. At the time of recording, the game currently sits at about a 75 on Metacritic with a 6.3 user score. So while the game isn't perfect and it's just an okay-ish kind of game, it's actually selling pretty well, posting over 1 million in sales over the first 3 days. While the game does have some issues, there are a lot who are happy with what the game has turned out to be. with some great environmental storytelling and gameplay, as well as the crazy flesh system, which is the game's gore system. And I really just wanted to mention this because it's kind of a feel-good story, especially considering the absolute development craziness journey of this game, which included multiple developers and numerous creative changes. But I'm glad that Dead Island fans finally have the sequel that they've been waiting for, and I'm glad that it just wasn't an absolute pile of garbage. Armored Core 6, the newest game by From Software, also received a new gameplay trailer and release date. Armored Core is a mech-based action game that puts players in control of a mech, fighting on the planet Rubicon 3 over a valuable substance called coral. At the end, the trailer also announced that the game will be releasing on August 25th for PlayStation, Xbox, and PC. While I haven't played the game series myself, I just know it being a FromSoft title will make it a very high quality game, and I know that the series has a long-lasting fan base, so I'm excited to see what the game has to offer. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep up with what's happening in gaming lately, then be sure and subscribe. Also, be sure to check out one of the other videos on your screen.